Recently, a scientific meeting entitled Towards Sustainable Food System in Southeast Asia, Insight from the Malika Research Platform, was held in Hanoi. This is Malika's annual meeting, an international consortium of research partners formed in 2002 to gather the skills and resources aimed to find the solutions to ensure affordable and safe food for Asia's quickly urbanizing population, while harmonizing positive effects for income, employment, and natural resource management in rural areas. In Vietnam, Malika consists of 10 domestic and international research organizations. At the annual meeting this year, Malika shared the key points in its work in 2017-2018 and discussed the overall objective of Malika's science project in areas such as the transformation of the agriculture system in relation to urban food system and market dynamic, restructuring the market and developing quality standards correlates with changes in urban consumption patterns and trade integration, assessing impact and potential approaches to support reforms in public policy and collective action for a sustainable food system.
Hệ thống lương thực thực phẩm bền vững thì nó là một khái niệm tương đối rộng và hiện nay thì đã được Liên Hợp Quốc đưa vào chương trình nghị sự của phát triển bền vững, và nó khá mới và nó mang tính tổng hợp, vì thế là đòi hỏi phải có nhiều tổ chức tham gia đa ngành, bao gồm cả các ngành kỹ thuật, trồng trọt, chăn nuôi, rồi kinh tế, xã hội học, nhân chủng học, địa lý học, vân vân.
Hello, you're watching Shane Vietnam. Towards a sustainable food system in Southeast Asia is the theme of Malika's annual scientific meeting this year. Today, let's have a talk with a representative for Malika's research platform to get to know more about the activities in Vietnam. Hello, thank you so much for joining our show today. First of all, can you share with us the main results of the Malika's research for the period 2017-2018, and what are the priority research areas?
So we have been discussing today about 4 topics, and one topic was about how to strengthen collective actions of producers and value chain stakeholders in Vietnam. So farmers' organizations, producers, processors' organizations, cooperatives, how they can strengthen the agriculture in Vietnam. Then the main issue was that we need to support those cooperatives. We need to base more our policies on what the private sector, whether it is for geographical indications, for food safety, whatever, for any development project. Then the second session was on food safety in Vietnam and Southeast Asia. So one of the main conclusions was that consumers, of course, are very much concerned about food safety, but they don't really know about the standards. They don't properly recognize the labels, the certification schemes, whether it is organic agriculture, VietGAP, safe vegetables, that one. And here we see there's a really important need of better communications towards producers for them to understand better what are those safe food certification schemes. We had many discussions about geographical indications and how to write the book of specification, how to write the standards, how to write the technical content according to the knowledge of the farmers. And finally, the last session was about livestock perspectives. One is about food safety in livestock. How do we assess risk? And then we had also a presentation of the future of livestock in Vietnam, trying to build some scenario and see what is the future of livestock, especially in the dairy sector, in Bavi, what could be the various options. Or whether we should go to the scenario which is more sustainable in the long term, with maintaining small family farms for dairy production.
And how about the food safety? What are the main issues?
Yeah, there's a big concern because there's a really lack of communication. I think communication is the first concern, and communication at any level. First, even when you're a producer, you don't understand what are the food safety regulations, Then for consumers, of course, it's it's not transparent at all. They don't know which food is safe or not. They don't know where to buy safe food. They don't really trust the certification schemes. So that is where we really try to work, and also to draft some recommendations to make the labeling much more simpler. Then the consumers know about these labels. And another proposal we have is to implement control through what we call internal control by the group of producers or organization gathering several enterprises, and they could already do some internal control, controlling among themselves the compliance with food safety regulations. And then you only need the state to come as an external control. And the other recommendation is to have a proper scientific-based communication. So this is also where we try to work, trying to raise a better, to draft recommendations about a better management system of food safety. So assessing controlling food safety regulation, assessing where is the major risk, because not all the food has the same risk. There are more risk in the livestock than in the rice, for example. And then if there's any problem, any issue, and this will always happen, try to have a solid communication. Communication which is very fast when there's a scandal, and then consumers are aware of what not to buy anymore and where to go to get the safe food. And not have the kind of communication like everything is going well, whereas it is not the case. Because then consumers don't know what is true and what is false, and they become, there's some kind of paranoia.
One of the focus of the Malika research during the past year is food safety. This is the core issue for us to be able to be towards a sustainable food system.
We understood it to be a strong issue in Vietnam. We've seen that it has come strongly from different perspectives, from a consumer perspective, from a political perspective, and also from the changes that are now happening in the value chains. That means from production level, trade level, retail level. People are changing their approaches to trading food, consuming food, producing food because of food safety concerns.
A large-scale survey conducted by Malika in Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, and Da Nang showed that the biggest concern of urban consumers is chemical-contaminated products. On the other hand, consumers in these urban areas still believe that they are able to find ways to buy safe food from many different sources.
And one of the big things that people are relying on is origin of the product. And so we've been looking at how do people understand origin and which type of information are they looking at. And interestingly, they're more and more looking at formal labels and at information in the stores for capturing origin and food safety.
According to Malika's research, one of the problems that hinder food safety is that consumers and the producers themselves are still confused about developing labels and quality standards in Vietnam. In addition, Malika's scientists have been conducting research and are optimistic about the potential for developing tools to ensure food safety in traditional markets, a hotspot for hygiene and food safety throughout the years. I've learned that Malika has also been doing research in neighboring countries of Vietnam. So do you think what is the advantage and disadvantage of food system in Vietnam comparing to those countries?
Maybe Vietnam has more labels. There are more certification schemes, like VietGap. Vietnam is quite advanced in terms of setting those certifications. But then in terms of production system itself, the situation is not so good in Vietnam compared to Laos and Cambodia, for example, because Vietnam uses a lot of pesticides, lots of chemicals, in rice, in any kind of cultivation. So the residues in the food is quite high. So let's say that Vietnam has more issues at the production levels, and Vietnam also comes up with more solutions because there are more concerns. But what is interesting is to learn, from different countries, what is the experience. So they use less pesticides and less chemicals in Laos and Cambodia, for example. So how could Vietnam come back to a more agroecological systems, not necessarily organic, full organic, but at least using less pesticides or antibiotics. How Vietnam could learn from his neighboring countries on this issue, and on the contrary, how other countries can learn from Vietnam how to set up some labels, and those certificates for good agricultural practices. Or all the trademarks. In Vietnam, you have many trademarks with safe vegetables from Dalat, safe vegetables from Mok Cho. It's a very good experience from Vietnam that can be useful for neighboring countries.
And how about the experience in France? Because France is well known all over the world for high food quality.
Yeah, so I think one of the major lessons learned from France is really to set up strong producers organization, farmers organization, or even what we call interprofessional organizations. So organizations gathering producers, processors, big and small, so also big companies. And then it's up to these interprofessional bodies to set up the standards. They are collaborating with the state, with the public authorities in setting up the standards to be sure that the food safety standards are adapted to what can do the value chain stakeholders. And those organizations are also very powerful in terms of implementing the control. They do a lot of control, what I was calling before the internal control. So this is very important in France. And then the government, the Ministry of Agriculture, is very powerful with inspection. They have a lot of veterinary staff who is conducting inspections on site. But we have much more cooperation, public-private partnership, let's say, in France. The private sector is much more involved in both elaborating the policies, elaborating the standards, the certifications, and controlling them.
And from the research Malika's point of view, what factors are needed for Vietnam to be towards a sustainable food system?
So where we have been working in is really, try to have an atlas, a mapping of the livestock sector, for example. So it's not so much looking at the impact of the food industry, but trying to give some data, some tools for the policymakers, to draft the most efficient policy. So what we really try to do is to give them knowledge, to collect some data, to prepare those scenarios, for example. And another big project we had was on geographical indications. So then we made some recommendations how to have a better use of geographical indications by the producers and in the market, and how consumers could recognize those geographical indications, because there are 60 of them registered already in Vietnam, 60 geographical indications, but very few of them are used in the market. Maybe you know Ngoc Mam Phu Quoc, but who knows that there is the orange from Cao Phong, Cam Cao Phong? Who knows about the other one? So we also did some research to document how all the GIs are managed in Vietnam. So trying to survey all the GI product, the people behind it, survey with the local authorities at provincial level or district level. And from that, we draft recommendations for the policy makers, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Science and Technology, for them to, from our data, from our research, and then we propose some recommendations that they can immediately implement.
Thank you so much for your sharing. And that's all for Sharing Vietnam today. Thank you for watching. Now it's time to say goodbye. See you again.